is our relevant daily draft podcast. I am joined today by Randall and Bill, and we are going to start doing scouting reports for players in the 2025 draft. But before we dive into the scouting reports, Bill, you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody where they can find your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like he said, my name is Bill. You can find all of my content on X. I am at Spark Scouting. Pretty much everything is there, from scouting reports to player information to NFL content and NFL draft content. So you can find it all there.
Fantastic. And Randall?
My name's Randall. It's at Randall Cypher for Twitter or X. That's where you can find all my stuff. I try and engage with almost everybody about football there. And same thing, pretty much Twitter.
Cool. So we have selected, I believe it's 7 wide receivers and 7 corners. Who is the first corner that you guys want to talk about?
Do you want to start with Avante Dickerson?
Absolutely. I was kind of hoping you would start with Avante Dickerson. So he is one of the guys that he's a sleeper on my board. Avante Dickerson from Utah State, stands 5'11", 170 pounds. I will tell you, to preface this, the man is fast. When you watch him on tape, that speed pops on tape very well. We're talking 4.43 40-yard dash time is what I see when I see his tape. He's got closing speed to make those big hits. You see he closes on that ball very well. He's a great zone cornerback. He's great in zone because he's got that closing speed. He can get sideline to sideline quickly. The concerns I have for Dickerson is he doesn't have the hip fluidity to turn and run with NFL wide receivers. In addition to that, 170 pounds soaking wet, he's going to get moved around a bit. He's going to get bumped around a bit. I currently have a 6th round grade on Avante Dickerson. He's a day 3 guy for me. I compare him to a guy like a Kevin Seymour from the Washington Commanders, a smaller guy. You put him in the slot, run him in some nickel packages, but the man's got speed to where you could even use him on special teams as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I love, not only is he running a 4.34, he was a 4-star recruit out of high school, so he's been doing it for a while. And he also has a verified in high school. So I'm not sure what we see at the combine, but he already has a 76-inch wingspan. So it's a 5'11" dude with a 6 foot, almost 5 wingspan, which is insane. So he plays taller with that reach. And his stats are fine. His stats are great, actually. In 2024, any QB, his QB rating while targeted was 69.1, and in 2023 is 60.3. So in back-to-back years, he is still competing at a high level, even if it's Utah State. So I love him as well. I actually had a day 3 as well on him, but then I do believe his measurables and his combine would put him possibly early day 3, like maybe mid-4th, if he tests out really well.
I agree. I think he's going to be one of those guys we turn into the combine and we see his name just all over everything, from vertical to 40-yard dash to the 10-yard shuttle. We'll see his name pop up quite a bit come combine season.
His high school shuttle was 4.07, like almost broke 4.
Speed. You can't teach it. Speed.
So, and I appreciate everybody that's joining the podcast. And we're not just going to talk about the day 1 players. And one of the reasons that we're doing that is that as we approach the 3 college bowl, the All-Star games, the Hula Bowl, East-West Shrine, and Senior Bowl, this would be an example of a player where that All-Star circuit is going to help him because he'll play against higher competition.
Absolutely.
So who is the next corner?
Let's see. What we don't have on the list is Fred Davis, 2nd. Am I right?
Yes, Fred Davis is next up. Yes. So
they played yesterday, right?
Yeah, they played yesterday. So Fred Davis is a guy that I found. I was watching tape on Clay Webb, the guard from Jacksonville State, oddly enough, and I stuck around and watched some of their defense. 6'1", 192. He is built very well. He's a fluid mover. he's built more in a safety mold than he is a cornerback mold, but he's very good in press coverage. He can get up on the line, bump up against those wide receivers. The one thing that I really love that he does well is he tracks the ball well while it's in the air.
And he mirrors
you
receivers.
Never see him out of position while that ball is in the air.
Yeah,
exactly. He mirrors receivers well.
Yep.
The big concern that I have with him is he gets very grabby. And at the next level, that's going to invite a lot of flags. It's going to cause a lot of issues for him. It's something that if he lands in the right team, it gets coached out of. I've got a day 3 grade on him right now for the same reason that we had on Dickerson. He's one of those guys, when we get to those Shrine Bowls, the Senior Bowls, the Combine circuit, he's going to start to rise up draft boards. I think he's a better safety than corner at the next level, but if you wanted to put him in the slot, if you wanted to put him in a safety role, I think he could do that. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Poyer, the Dolphins-Bills safety. You see a lot of it when it pops on tape. A lot of teams are probably going to shy away from him on the outside because of how grabby he is. But if someone drafted him to put him on the outside, I wouldn't be opposed. I think he can play there, but I think he's a better fit in the slot or at safety.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got a question for you. What is your concern with the transfers, the consistent transfer? Like, he was doing well in Clemson, transferred over to UCF, didn't play, barely played in UCF, one game, I believe, and then transferred to Jacksonville State. That's probably my number one concern there.
I would agree. I think it's going to be a concern when we come to the Combine and he's asked about it. He's got to be able to speak to it and say, hey, I could understand if he played at UCF, played a few games, and just said, hey, this isn't for me. This isn't my place to land. But he only played one game and then immediately transferred out. I don't know what was promised to him. I don't know if it was everything he did or didn't expect. It is a red flag for me, but it's not as big a red flag as people would think.
Yeah. I did have a red flag on that, especially because that one game he played more special teams than he did in the backfield. So they were using him. It is true. I am curious about what they promised him. I actually don't think he's going to get drafted, but I do think he's going to get picked up at the end. And I do believe that safety is an option for him, and practice squad might be the best for him to start at to figure out where he does fit in the NFL. So I don't think he gets drafted, but I think he could be a UDFA that surprises a lot of people.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah,
he's one of those special teams guys.
Yeah, I want to add a couple things to that. So for those people that are watching, and there are a lot of you watching, so thank you very much for joining. One of the reasons that we're covering such a large number of players, there's approximately 35 corners that get drafted every year. And nearly every team is going to bring one or two more rookies into their camp. So you might be hearing about somebody now, and the next time you hear about them is when they're a UDFA signing by your favorite team. So, Randall, I definitely appreciate that UDFA call out kind of thing. And
UDFAs are great.
Yeah. Okay, so now we can go back to the list.
Yeah,
now we can go back to the list that the two of you emailed and we all agreed on before, and then I changed it right as the podcast started. So, who is the first corner? Was it Delane that you guys wanted to do next?
I believe we are going to – Mansour Delane, that's good.
Yeah, we can dive into Mansour Delane. So, with Delane, it's 6'1", 187. You see the speed, it pops on tape. What I really love is that he's a Swiss Army knife. You can put him at corner. You can put him at safety. You can put him in the slot. You can put him on special teams. You could have him carry the water for the team if you wanted to and know he would do it well. Mm-hmm. The big game that really stood out to me was Virginia Tech versus Miami. When you watch him against Cam Ward, who I have as QB1, and I think a lot of people do, he had Cam Ward confused and just off kilter completely. He pressed the receivers. He pressed Restrepo at the line of scrimmage very frequently. He was constantly getting hands on passes. He plays bigger than 6'1", 170. He absolutely does. He plays a lot larger than that. My biggest knock on him, obviously, is he loses sight of the receivers on those 180 turns. The same thing we talked about with the Dickerson, getting that head turned around. He loses sight of it. So going over the top against him is probably the best way to beat him. But I like Delane. I think he is a day 3 guy, and I think he's another one of these guys that we'll probably see on the tail end, on the back end of day 3, probably ends up in a camp, a UDFA situation. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Watson from the Kansas City Chiefs. One of those Swiss Army knives in Spagnuolo's defense that he can deploy everywhere. 3rd and 10 and you need a nickel corner, throw him out there. 1st and 10 and you need a safety to come downhill and hit someone, throw him out there. Randall, what do you think about Mansour?
Yeah, I think he could sneak into late day 2, and I actually have an early day 3 for him. I'm a big fan of Mansour Delane. I am a big fan of Virginia Tech's defense. They are a lot of fun to watch. So we'll see. Sometimes Virginia Tech defense does not translate into the NFL, but I always hope for the best. I very much agree. He is cerebral. To mention on that Miami game, if you looked at the PFF grade, which I know PFF does not grade that well, but it wasn't a great grade on him. And I think, to be honest, the reason that he didn't have a good grade is because in the first quarter of that Miami game, he actually played safety, and then they moved him to cornerback in the second quarter, and he did not play well at safety against Miami. He played too far back, thought Cam was going to be too explosive, and just let people get 20, 25-yard gains. Moved him to cornerback, and then he absolutely destroyed it. I mean, when we were looking at that, I know that you're talking about that crosser, right? That was Restrepo coming across. He locked up Restrepo coming across, which Cam was staring him down, and then the front four were able to hit him. Luckily, whoever caught that ball for Miami caught it, but that ball soared up in the air, and it should have been an interception. But it was Mansour's duty to follow him. He did that job, and he basically created a turnover in my head for that.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, I like him as a cornerback more than a safety. I do like him in the slot. The good game was Miami. The bad game was Vanderbilt. If you watch any of that Vanderbilt tape, Quincy Skinner had his number in the first half. I think put up 125 yards in the first half. And on him, it was one-on-one. Mansour should have handled him. Got burned on a couple double moves. And it just didn't really work out. So I saw the negatives and the positives, and I think the positives for me put him in an early day 3 to start.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the positives when you look at Delane, especially the speed and the size profile, even though he's 5'11", 170, he has room to bulk up. It's a very lean 170. He has room to bulk up and add size. So
for sure.
It's not the end of the world. He needs to get in with the team, get in their strength and conditioning coach, bulk up on some weight, but you see a lot of the skill set already there. The big thing, like I said, being able to turn and run, just like we talked about in that Miami game with Restrepo. Same thing when they looked at him in the second half when they had him matched up against the tight end Arroyo. He was doing a lot of the same things, mirroring Arroyo over the middle. Cam Ward had to go away from his side of the field to actually get them back in that ballgame. Yeah,
and he's actually a very good tackler in terms of leveraging it and holding his line. I believe it was Stanford when he was sitting on the goal line and he was about to push it in. He knew to put his weight in front of the goal line just to stop to make sure, but then he punched the ball at the same time, caused that fumble, which then in turn went into a turnover. So he was doing like 3 things at once in his head, and that mental right there was actually very cool to see.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, and now on which player is next on the list that you two agreed on? I don't have that message in front of me, so I'll let you two grab that.
I believe it was Denzel Burke, right?
Yep, I think Denzel Burke was next, which
right,
Denzel
Ohio
Burke's
man.
been one of the more of the one talked about corners out there. So 6'1", 193. We're talking about a guy with speed. He shows very excellent ball skills. I love his back pedal. When you watch him backpedal against wide receivers, it's just so smooth. It's silky. It's nice and easy. He can translate very quickly. He's got fluid hips to turn and run. I do love that he's got length and physicality, so he can make moves in press coverage. He has a competitive edge. He can support and run defense. My big concerns is that he struggles wrapping people up. He tries to use that length and physicality to just shoulder tackle, arm tackle, and at the next level, that's not going to fly. He's not very physical with tackles. He needs to be more physical in that run game. Long speed isn't great. He has an initial burst and a decent speed, but as you go long, it starts to fade off. He's going to struggle against some of those speedier guys, the Xavier Worthies, the Isaiah Bonds, the speed guys of the NFL. I'm a little bit lower on him because of that. I'm a little bit lower on him because of the run support. And I'll admit that I have around 3 grade on Denzel Burke right now. He reminds me a lot of J.C. Horn when J.C. Horn was at South Carolina. You see a lot of the same physicality, a lot of the same great skills in man coverage. You see the issues, the hip turn issues, the physicality issues. Randall, what do you think about Denzel Burke?
I got some questions for you because
Yeah.
are you a Ohio State fan?
I am an Ohio State watcher. Wouldn't
Okay.
say a fan, but an Ohio State watcher.
Who's your college team since you live in Ohio?
Well, so I don't live in Ohio. I live in Indiana, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So my college teams, I've got a couple. It would be Indiana, Louisville, and UCLA are probably my big three college teams.
Cool. Okay, so my question is his 2023 tape looked great. When I was watching a lot of the 2023 tape, because I was trying to really give him a lot of benefit of the doubt because he was so good in 2023 and it's just a huge drop off in 2024, I saw a heavy dose in 2023 of short and intermediate routes that he was defending in 2023. And then you turn on the 2024 tape and it seems as though they know to go deep on him. And when you stress the long speed and he plays really far back, I think like maybe 3 or 4 yards too far back when you're playing on him and you're not playing press. So he plays very far back, but then still gets burned. So, I mean, I don't want to like completely just obliterate him and talk about the Oregon game the whole time. But the Oregon game was bad. Like it was not like I felt bad for him watching it. Like, and it was just in the first half, a lot of the bulk happened in the first half for him and it just wasn't fun. I felt bad because Igbenason was on the other side and they barely targeted him because, head coach must have been like, hey, he's cooked today. Let's hit him.
Yeah.
Sort of.
And I'm going to get a little spicy here. We'll talk about Igbenason a little bit later too, but I'm going to get a little spicy here with this take that I'm about to drop. I think that Igbenason is a better NFL prospect than Denzel Burke is.
I 100% agree. That's not a spicy take. Well,
some people think it is. Some people think it's blasphemy. But I agree with you that Oregon tape, if I'm Denzel Burke or I'm his agent or I'm anyone in his camp, I am burning every video, every recording, every bit of that tape because it exposes him on every level because you see it. Tez Johnson, he just blows right by him. Burke has initial burst in the short and intermediate like you talked about, but the moment you start to get to that 15, that 20-yard mark, he tails off. And it's just the speed's not there.
I know. But I will tell you, if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, if the Buffalo Bills are drafting him in the 3rd round, I'm salivating because what his ceiling is so high. I mean, he started as a true freshman and played well as a true freshman sort of thing. So, and he did it in high school as well. So the talent's there. It's what can you get out of him? And especially with the Buffalo Bills, we're DB masters. We can fix Denzel Burke.
Yeah. If I'm drafting him in that 3rd round category, like I talked about, I'm a happy camper, but I've got to know that if I'm going to put him in man coverage, I've got to have safety help over the top because after that 10, 15-yard mark, he's going to get burned.
Yeah. And I'm okay with another team taking him in the 1st or the 2nd because somebody will probably bite too early for him. And in my opinion, I'll let it go. Unless, we still have a lot of the rest of the season to go.
Yeah. And I'm going to say there's probably some preseason hype on Burke. From the standpoint of, I think nearly every board I saw had a 1st-round grade on Burke coming into the season. When Burke was on the board last year, right, because he chose to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when he was on the board last year, he was a top 100 player, right? And that was
not a doubt,
right. Mm-hmm. And that was last year was a decent year for corners, right?
Yep.
And he was not just a guy, he was one of the better guys. So for his stock, like to me, there's a floor to how far he can fall, right? He's not going to go like fall to like undrafted or round 6. He's going to fall from like top 100 to top 150 just because the previous year's tape is better.
Yeah. There's going to be a GM out there that's going to see the tape and say, hey, it's just an outlier, or maybe it's something we don't put him in those situations by himself. But if you're drafting a corner in rounds 1, 2, even in parts of round 3, you're expecting that guy to be able to stand on his own. Maybe not in the immediate, but in the short term, but in the long term. So if you're expecting to draft him with help, then that's a day 3 guy.
For sure. And I mean, and it's not just Oregon. I mean, I watched the Marshall game. I know Marshall has good receivers too, but he didn't play well against Marshall either. I mean, he was trying to foul. He couldn't catch up the crossers, and he was still playing too far back. So it's just not Oregon. It's just, I just hope that he gets better by the end of the year come playoffs, assuming, they'll be in the playoffs and such, and then he can really show out at the end of the year.
Yeah, I agree.
Ooh. Okay, and next.
Let's see. We working. Do you want to do? Did we want to do Ephesians?
Let's do Ephesians Prysock up next.
Yeah.
So with Ephesians Prysock, I'm gonna start this with a caveat. So Ephesians Prysock right now is on a lot of draft boards, but there are rumors that he's going to go back to school. I personally think that's probably the best for him. The grade I have for him is a 4th, 5th round grade at best. He's got size, 6'4", 190 pounds. He was a 2-way player in high school, played both ways. When he's on, you see it. A tall, long frame helps him retain the hip fluidity. You see twitch. You see really crisp in the hip transitions when he turns and runs with guys. He has a very tight pedal. But what concerns me is the long speed. Just like we talked about with Burke, it's the same way with Prysock. Faster vertical threats, they're going to get a step on him. He also idles his feet in press man situations. So if you ever see him in press coverage, you typically want to have 1 or 2 feet constantly moving so that way you're not blown off the line. Most corners, that's not an issue because you have long speed to recover. Prysock, it is an issue. He's already a step behind because of that long speed. Now it's putting him even further behind. Same thing, he's also a lot of times laid back in his length. He's got length. He can keep defenders at bay. He can press them off the line and throw them off the route. But he just doesn't use it. And that's what's weird to me. I think the best thing for Prysock is for him to go back to school. I don't think he should come out in this class. I think he needs to go back to school. I think he needs to work on some of these things like his length and like those press situations that we talked about. If he does declare, it's going to be very imperative for him during that draft process to show, hey, I can use my length effectively. Hey, I can help in these press situations. I have this hip fluidity that I can turn and run with receivers. My comparison for him is Anthony Everett, the corner who's played with the Raiders, the Ravens, the Steelers. A very long, lanky frame guy. He has the ability to build muscle mass on that frame. So even though it's 190, it's not a hard and fast 190. But I think, in my opinion, the best thing for him is to go back to school. And we've heard rumors, Randall, you and I talked about it earlier this week. We heard rumors about him potentially going back to school because of that. Plus, we also talked about he transferred from Arizona to Washington to follow his head coach there. I don't think he's going to follow his head coach and then immediately bolt after a year. But Randall, what do you think about Prysock?
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially because since Washington, he followed him because DeBoer went over to Alabama. So I would assume that a lot of his people that he moved from Arizona to Washington, he's going to talk to him and be like, hey, I need another year because there's still a lot of meat on that Washington bone that I think that they can accomplish in 2026 that'll really improve all their stock. So I do think that that's a thing. Question. Let's say he enters into the NFL draft. What would you like to see him run in the combine? Like a 4, like to improve would probably be like a 4.42, right?
Yeah.
If he can do it. But if he runs a 4.5, then that might be a problem, a serious problem.
Yeah, anything that's probably 4.48 and above, it flags. It's a flag for me. If he runs sub 4.48, I think he will be fine. He can explain some of the long speed issues. But a guy of his size who already has long speed concerns, and then he comes out and he runs a 4.5, I think that just immediately that tanks his stock, and that puts him from the potential day 3 grade that he's been hearing and that I have on him to near undrafted if it comes out that way.
Yeah, I agree. At the moment, I did have him at the end of 7th or UDFA, but that's really because I do believe that he does need to go back next year. And then I believe another year will definitely help him out.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, is the next one the guy from Brown where we had problems finding the tape?
Isaiah
I
Reed.
believe it is Isaiah Reed. So we review all sorts of players here on this podcast. We even go to the Ivy Leagues with Isaiah Reed from Brown.
I like him more than Prysock.
You know what? I am right there with you. So 6 foot even, about 185 pounds. I've seen him in the little tape that I was able to find. He played a lot of outside corner and deep safety. Very long frame. I will tell you this. If he gets an invite to the Hula Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, the East-West game, the Combine, he is going to shoot up draft boards. He is going to test extremely well. And then teams are going to have to scramble for the Ivy League footage like we did. You see, one of the big things that I saw in the little tape that I did see was he has a tendency to bite hard on play action double moves. And it's him trying to make a play on the ball, which I respect wholeheartedly. And he has the speed to come back and keep up with those defenders. But the big knock on him for me is he's a little sloppy in run support. He's sloppy in run coverage. He takes great angles, but he dives and grabs at ankles, doesn't wrap people up. The form is not there. He is one of those guys that you want to see him, number one, in a combine setting where you can see the athleticism, you can see the skill, you can see the speed. But then also you want to see him in those one-on-one drills. If he gets an invite to, say, the Senior Bowl, for example, and is one-on-one with some of these receivers, we're all going to be sitting there like, why weren't we watching more Ivy League film? But Randall, what do you think about Isaiah Reed?
Yeah, he is on the Senior Bowl watch list, right? So he is. I do think he's going to get it. I'm a big fan. I mean, last year he had 5 interceptions. I do think when you're talking about the run safety, I feel like sometimes, which in my opinion is a good thing, that he plays with a lot of ego. And I love that because I believe in cornerbacks, safeties, and wide receivers. You definitely have to play with a lot of ego to make sure that you perform to where higher than you believe you will. But to be honest, my favorite thing is his interviews. The way he talks about the game and the way he talks about actually the Ivy League was my funnest thing about him, because when he's playing in the Ivy League, like, he plays with a big ego because he is the top Ivy League player, and in my head, I believe. But when somebody asks about the Ivy League competition, all he does is talk up the Ivy League. He's like, I'm playing with dogs. You guys just don't see it. I play with dogs, and there's these people. And in an interview, he was naming off 3, 4, 5 people when he's talking about the dogs. So it's not like he's just like getting a pass being an Ivy League. He respects it, which I love, and which I believe will continue into the NFL and stuff like that. So that ego that he plays with stays, and then he adjusts with bigger competition. So like that lighter competition, I don't think is a big problem for him because of his mindset, and that's what I kind of love. I think that he would be great in nickel as long as he does get that run defense, which I do think with his hard work and everything that he will learn that for the NFL. But I think he'd be great in nickel position.
Yep,
Okay, so let me ask, I know we have one more corner to do, but who do you think would be faster? Which Isaiah Reed or Isaiah Bond?
Ooh.
Bond.
You're taking Bond?
I'm going to take Bond.
I'm taking Ivy League. I'm taking Reed. I think Reed has a chance to be one of the faster corners.
I agree. Don't get me wrong. We picked a lot of fast cornerbacks for the first session, by the way.
Right. We picked a lot of speedy guys. Everybody's sitting here like, do I need to go buy stopwatches for this episode to just sit here and clock all these guys? So yes, these guys are fast, but I think Isaiah Reed is going to shock some people, especially like we talked about. He's on that Senior Bowl watch list. He reminds me a lot of Fabian Moreau from the Minnesota Vikings. A very gritty, lunch pail guy.
Yeah.
But he also has that speed. He's faster than Moreau ever was. So I really like Ivy League. Let me ask you this. As a GM, so we'll put GM caps on for a second. Do you think him playing in an Ivy League affects his stock in any way?
No. Not after listening to him and watching some of the tape and the way he operates, not at all.
And
Okay.
I think this will be the theme, I think, for the next 6 months, is the word traits, right? Because we're missing at the top end of this draft class, we're missing some talent that's not there this year that's usually there. So people are going to be taking players based upon traits, and especially round 1, round 2, round 3. The players that go there usually have elite athleticism. They have, the right measurables if you're a tackle, the right arm length, and things of that nature. So I think a player like Reed, I think 3rd round, he's got a shot. He has to play out the year and do well in the all-star circuit. But I think round 3 is possible. But athleticism like that gets drafted.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't teach speed. You can teach technique, you can teach press, but you cannot teach speed. And if I right now I have a day 3 grade on him just because in the Ivy League you don't get a lot of opportunities. I think he's got 7 interceptions over 3 years, but part of that is just teams don't throw his way.
Right.
But I think if we see him in those the big thing is I'd love to see him get to the Senior Bowl in those one-on-ones. Match him up with the Tez Johnsons of the world. Give me Tez Johnson from Oregon versus Isaiah Reed, and I will have that playing all day 24/7 watching those reps, because that's stuff that feeds families.
That'll tell a lot. Did you see the tape on him where he broke up that screen pass and he hit that wide receiver so hard that it took like 10 seconds for the ref to call an incomplete pass? Because he cleanly trucked him. The second he got the ball in a screen pass. Ball went flying, rolled into the end zone. Isaiah Reed picked it up like it was a touchdown, but the ref was just staring blankly, and it was like, wait, no, incomplete. Because it was such a hard hit.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Jim,
so
Jim,
I think we have one more corner.
Well, first you got to break the tie, because Bill said Ivy, I said Bond. So you got to break the tie.
Okay, I'm going to put my money on Bonds, but I don't want to put too much money on it.
It's too safe. It's too safe to say Bond.
Yeah,
right. It's a little safe to say Bond. I like Reed and Bond.
Me too.
We'll talk about Bond a little bit later in the episode, but man, the one thing I wish from Isaiah Reed, he's great at the Ivy League, 100%. I saw the interview. I agree with you. I really would have loved him in like a Power 5 school.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know his recruiting journey, what happened from high school to college, to be honest. Yeah. But I'm not sure how those conversations went. I mean, he could be just a genius, and I love it. I mean, everybody knows that Ryan Fitzpatrick went to.
But if you're going to Brown and you made that decision coming out of high school, more than likely it's because you were playing probabilities that you were going to make a living off of your college degree and not your athletic ability.
Right.
Exactly. You're just playing probability there, I think.
Yeah.
But my opinion, without knowing the guy, right? That's my opinion. I'm just a guy with an opinion and an internet connection.
There you go.
Exactly. That's all we are.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, Bill, our guy's next. Your hot take.
My hot take, Davison Igbino's son from Ohio State. So let's talk. 6'2", 193. And if it hasn't already been said in this episode, he's fast. Just like all these other corners, he is a blazer. But not only is he fast, he's got long speed that Denzel Burke doesn't have. He can keep up with those vertical routes and close in a hurry. He flips his hips very fluidly. He stays in transition. He also has a very good ability to plant his foot, drive, click, and close in the run game and on those short screen passes. And he has a competitive mentality that I absolutely love. He doesn't care who he's matched up with. It could be Randy Moss circa 1999. It could be Chris Carter. It could be Isaiah Bond. It does not matter. He will go head up with them every time. The big thing that I have a concern with is that same competitive spirit gets a little overzealous in run support, and sometimes he abandons coverages too quickly. I saw it happen a couple of times against Oregon. You see him, he's trailing in coverage, and then all of a sudden, they're about to run the ball. I'm going to hit, click, and close, but it's a play action, and he bites on it, and now he's burned. Because while he has that long speed, somebody gets 2 steps on you, you're not catching up to a Tez Johnson of the world.
Right.
But I think he's got that long speed. I have a 2nd to 3rd round grade on Igbinosun right now. He reminds me a lot of Kelvin Joseph, Indianapolis Colts corner, but a little bit faster. And he's one of those guys that I've got to push pin in for combine season when we come back. I'm thinking he could run a sub 4.3 40 time.
You think sub 4.3? I think
sub
so too.
4.3
I think
is what
so
I'm
too.
thinking. And if he does, his stock is going to go through the roof, and he's going to bypass Burke all the way to the bank.
Yep.
But Randall, what do you think about Igbinosun?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, from what I could find, he's capable of a 4.34 right now. So with preparation, I think he can break that sub 4.3. I love him. I mean, in high school, he was a wide receiver, running back, and a DB in high school. He did everything. They just put him everywhere, figured it out, sort of thing. So I love that. The transfer from Ole Miss to Ohio State, I like how he did actually transferred over there. Ohio State helped him, in my opinion, and I like all his traits. I do like, I mean, my kind of quarterback is kind of a trash talker and being physical on the line. He definitely trash talks, as well as, getting Trayshawn Holden, getting hot during that Oregon game and got him kicked out. But I do love that. And then his aggressiveness on the line, I know he can get beat sometimes, but he also had, when he was playing against Iowa, he was playing press and he bodied his wide receiver up to the 5 yards. And when the wide receiver tried to release, he couldn't release. Quarterback threw it, and it was an easy interception for him. And that was all work by him because he bodied him, and then it was an easy interception. So I love that and the super physical part of it. And then the long speed is what is awesome about it. Sometimes I see him, and I almost think that he gives the wide receiver that extra step because he knows that he can catch up to him. And I love that. And that's an ego move, and I love that. But there at least 6 to 8 times I would see the wide receiver with 1 step extra, and then every single time it would close in and get rid of it. So I love that about him. I actually have a mid-second round on him right now with the chance to go into the late first with his combine, which I do think he'll do.
Yep, absolutely.
Good. We ready to do the wide receivers?
Let's get it.
Let's dive in.
Okay, this might be what everybody's watching for.
This is the big ticket. This is what everybody's watching for. They're like, hey, we're tired of these speedy cornerbacks. Can we get some pass catchers out here?
Yeah.
All right.
So I have a lot of fantasy football fans that watch my channel, and they're looking for is it going to be a good wide receiver draft or a good running back draft? I got a lot of questions like that. Not usually this early in the year, but usually in the next 6 to 12 weeks, that usually starts to come in. So
unless you have a top 5 running back, trade all of them for next year's running back class.
Yep. And I'll agree. It's a class that if you can get one of the top 3 guys, a lot of the top 3 guys, everybody else is going to be in running back by committee situations. You're not going to have those bell cow type of guys. If you can get your number 1 overall selection and get Ashton Jeanty, I'm not the greatest fantasy player, but I will tell you to sell the farm, your neighbor's house, and your parents' house to get that first round pick to take Jeanty.
Yeah,
but then again, that's
in 2 hours. We got Boise State versus UNLV, right?
Yes, we do.
Oh, that's gonna be a good game.
Yes, that is one that I'm going to be watching because I really want to see Ashton Jeanty versus Jalen Catalan in the hole.
Yep,
don't give me anything else. Just give me those 2 in an Oklahoma drill right in the hole, and that's all I want for 60 minutes.
And I love Ricky White 3.
So one of the other analysts that helps me on this channel, he's actually a credentialed scout, and he goes to a lot of UNLV games because he lives in Vegas.
Nice.
So, yeah. So I'm curious if Brock is there because Brock is actually going to be helping, I think, on tight ends and safeties. So when the podcast switches to those positions, that's where we will see Brock. But let's talk about can I use a first-round pick on this wide receiver from Maryland? So, Randall, you want to tell us about Ty Felton? That's who we were starting with, right?
Yep. Yeah, we can start with Ty Felton. Yes, Ty Felton, 6'2", 181, should run a 4.4 40 or quicker than that in the combine. Probably sub 4.2 shuttle. He was a 3-star recruit. He also probably has over a 35-inch vertical when he gets to the combine, which is great. And it's not just 1 year of production right now. We got a full year and a half of solid production, great numbers. He's got a great frame at 6'2", 181, plays outside, but plays short and long. His yards per reception is 12.5, even though he generally is outside. So he's still playing those slot and intermediate while still being able to get those contested catches. He's a yak monster. Right now he's got 798 yards. 446 of them are yards after catch, which is incredible. And then he's tied for first in missed tackles. So he almost can do it all, sort of thing. He'll run your flats, he'll run your screens, he'll run your 10-yard hitch, and he'll run your go route. His yards per route run is 2.94, which is great. His depth is great. He's 29 for 36 in the short, 8 for 13 and 2 touchdowns in the intermediate, and then he's 4 for 5 in the middle of the field on 20 plus. So, like, dealer's choice. Give him a route, and he'll pretty much do it, in my personal opinion. I love Ty Felton. I'm not going to say Bill's comparison because I stole it from him, but so I had to change it. But in my comparison, I have him kind of like a reliable Chris Godwin, or honestly, I know Puka's early, but a Puka where he's willing to do everything, sort of thing, and a low comp in Deontay Johnson. Yeah. What are you thinking, Bill?
Yeah, so Randall, your excitement was not contained. Like, you probably rattled off that scouting report in like record time.
I know. I apologize.
No. Your excitement about Ty Felton is infectious.
If he's a GM, he's not just banging the table for Ty Felton. He's flipped the table over and thrown it out the window. He's turning in the car.
Right. Yeah, pretty much.
But I have to agree. I have to agree 100%. He is a route running technician that can shake defenders at all 3 levels. You want him to run a slant. You want him to run a go. You want him to run a hitch and in and out. Ask him to run any route. He will run it. And not will he just run it, but he can make people miss immediately. I love watching him on in-breaking and out-breaking routes because the corners, they look around and they're like, he was just here. Where did he go? My other big thing that I love about Ty Felton so much is he is a big game performer. He is the guy, when the lights are on bright, he does not shrink from the competition. He is a dog in every sense of the word. He also has a competitive touchness at the catch point, winning a very good share of 50-50 balls. The big question that I see from Felton's perspective is he's a bit of a late bloomer. So this production spike that you've seen from him over the past couple of years, is it sustainable? I think it is. I think he has the skills to sustain those. I also would love to see him get some polish and some work as a perimeter blocker at the next level. I'm not in love with his run blocking, but you can coach that. You cannot coach how well he is a yak monster like you talked about. You can't coach his route running ability. And I'm going to throw the comp out there that you stole from me, but I'd be more than happy to let you have. He's just like another Maryland receiver that played for the Buffalo Bills, now is with the Houston Texans. It's Stephon Diggs. He is a Diggs clone in every sense of the word. And I'm with you. If I have a early second round grade, but I think once we start getting into combine season, and especially in those one-on-one drills, and you see him go up against some of those top-level cornerbacks, the Igbenasons, the Burks, even some of the other corners that are higher up there, I really would love to see a Travis Hunter, Ty Felton one-on-one at the combine. Just give me that. You don't even have to give me any other drills. Just give me that for 8 hours, and I'll be happy.
That'll tell a story. Yeah, I mean, he posted nine catches, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown against USC. That was a great game. my favorite game this year was Virginia. Probably my favorite Ty Felton play was his touchdown where he ran an inside post. But when he ran that inside post, at his first hitch to go inside, he actually just ran straight towards the cornerback instead of running that exact post, which then put that cornerback on an island. He didn't know if he was going outside or inside on the second turn, busted in, caught it right in between the safety and the cornerback with like hamburger helper mitts. Like it was no problem. In about a half a yard of separation, caught that for a touchdown. He made that look. That was a difficult catch that he made look like he was up against 5-year-olds. It was impressive.
Yeah. My favorite game is that Villanova game.
Yep.
14 catches, 157 yards. I mean, it's Villanova, so we got to take it with a grain of salt. The corners aren't exactly the greatest, but I mean,
15.
The corners were they were still on the bus while Ty Felton was catching catches out there.
Yeah. Agreed. All right.
Awesome. Which receiver are you guys going to next?
I'm going to have Bill start with Berrien Brown.
Oh, Berrien Brown. So we're going to go to Big Blue Country. Berrien Brown, 6'1", 182. You see a guy here. There is elite, and I say that with all bold and capital letters, elite straight line speed and acceleration. He will threaten a defense vertically. If you get the ball in or around Berrien Brown's hands, he is a threat to break it every single time. One thing I love with the new kickoff rules in the NFL, throw Berrien Brown back there and just watch him go to work because he's going to immediately take over in the special teams game. But not only that, he's versatile. I could put him in the backfield if I want to run a screenplay out of the backfield. If I want to run a swing pass, I can do that as well. If I want a short play, I can do that. If I want to go vertical with Berrien Brown, I can. He shows a very good body control, especially on tracking the deep ball. The big concern, 6'1", 180. The frame is light. It's a very light frame. He's also going to struggle against press coverage because of that lack of play strength. The biggest thing, and this is a red flag for me for Berrien Brown, and if I am in his camp, I am telling him this has to be addressed. He body catches balls over the middle and in traffic. When you see him go over the middle, he body catches it, forget how his hands work, because he's bracing for contact, because he's 6'1", 180 pounds. I understand it. But there's a lot of drops that are left on the table. I have an early third-round grade on Berrien Brown, and he reminds me a lot of a Jalen Tolbert from the Dallas Cowboys, a guy that you can put anywhere all over the field with that additional speed that can just go, and he is that type of guy. But, Randall, what do you think about Berrien Brown?
Yeah, I mean, that was very well done. I do agree. Honestly, the one red flag I did have was catching on the body sort of thing, because it's very obvious when he does it. And I do understand that he's catching it. But if he could bulk up, maybe 5 to 10 pounds, that would be ideal. But to be honest, the way he moves and the way his speed, because honestly, Berrien Brown should break 4.3.
Yes.
He should do like 4.28, 4.27 sort of thing in the 40. So his speed, I don't want him to lose any of the speed gaining much weight, but using him as a Z, I think it's perfect. And it was a great point on the kick returns, especially because probably next year they're going to move it to the 35. So you are taking back kicks next year in assumption. So having somebody back there like Berrien Brown is huge. And when you talked about those go routes, I completely agree. That Ole Miss fourth down catch that he had was a go route that was actually covered, which was a kind of a ballsy throw on a 4th and 3 to run a go route, and caught it silky mitts, and it was a great conversion for like 48 yards on a 4th and 3. So I do love him. I do think that there's not an insane amount of Z receivers available in this draft. I think there's a lot of big bodied ones. So I do think that he is going to go in the 3rd, because I think it's mildly scarce compared to last year in his type, and see how so people will be looking out for them, him and, Ricky White. So everything you said was great. I do love it. His long speed is my favorite, because for NFL quarterbacks, he can look covered 20 yards down the way, but throw him that go route, and he'll be, by the time the ball's caught, he's got 1 yard, 2 yards of separation. So put faith in him. and throw the ball, and he'll separate.
Yep. Let me ask you this. In the combine, let's say he runs a 4.4. Is that a flag for you?
A 4.4 might be a flag. A 4.3, a high 4.3 wouldn't, in my personal opinion, because I still think with his being 6'1" and being that quick anyways, I think you just look at the tape. I mean, a lot of somebody like Barry and Brown is when a lot of GMs actually want him to run a little bit slower, so then he gets back into those. So you value him out. So then you're like, okay, well, I know he runs fast in the game, but some people might bite on the combine number sort of thing. So overall, no. 4.4. If he ran a 4.44 in the combine, if I was Barry, I'd just tweet and be like, I got the flu.
Yeah.
Well,
I pulled a hamstring, something like that.
Yeah. And I think also this is the value of doing some of these exercises before the combine, because I have a theory: you can't count speed twice. If you know from watching the tape that Barry and Brown is fast, if he runs fast at the combine, you can't move him up because he ran fast. You already have his grade on your board based upon seeing the speed on film.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one of those things is that you can't count it twice or you can't penalize it twice.
Agreed.
He's where he is because you see him breaking away. I think actually, Randall, I think I was watching the game that you called out live. I don't remember who the opponent was, but I was watching a Kentucky game, and I remembered seeing a fourth down play. I don't remember if it was the South Carolina game that you just called out or not, but I'm always excited with fast receivers. So I'm curious, by the time we get done, we're going to be doing these wide receivers, we got 5 different episodes. I'm curious then if we start comparing, let's say, a Barry and Brown to, who's it, Tez Johnson?
Tez Johnson.
I have the name right? Yeah.
Yep.
It's not Tez Walker. Tez Walker came out last year. It's Tez Johnson.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because it sounds like the players are similar, other than their game is similar, even if their body types are drastically different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay. So next receiver that we're going to, is it one of the ones that's not on the list here?
It's next one was DeCorian Clark, UTSA.
DeCorian, yeah. DeCorian Clark from UTSA. So let's talk DeCorian Clark. So we're talking 6'3", 215, big body guy with elite, and I say that in all capital letters, all bolded, highlighted, red font, elite athletic skills. He's made Bruce Feldman's freaks list. He, in high school, jumped 24.8, hit 22 miles an hour, clocked a 4.3 shuttle time, ran 4.49 in the 40, broad jump 10.1, vertical of 35 inches, power cleaned 345. The man is an Avengers level threat in terms of an athlete. But not only that, he has long arms. He's got a large cast radius. He excels great in contested catch situations. While he may not always be open, he's always open with the length and the arms that he's got. He also adds value on kick returns, coverage, punt returns. He is a red zone threat. He's very good at high pointing the ball at UTSA. My biggest knock on him, you see a lot of concentration-based drops. A lot of catches that he should just haul in, drop. That and his issues with creating separation, because while he has that speed and he has that ability from an athletic perspective, he doesn't necessarily have the ability to create separation. While the speed is there, it's not in a burst capacity. It's a long speed. He reminds me a lot of Alec Pierce from the Indianapolis Colts.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Big body, ex-receiver that you can just throw the ball to deep and know he's going to be there, but there are some drop concerns. But I think he's a day 3 guy that could, when we get into those combine seasons, Senior Bowl, those types of things, teams are going to see this guy as an athletic nightmare for opposing defenses. and they're going to immediately shoot him up the draft board. But Randall, what do you think about DeCorian Clark?
I like him. I like that he is a freak of nature for sure. I think his red flags are pretty big red flags when it comes to separation with the speed sort of thing. It's almost kind of like you're negating that speed if you can't get that separation. But then the crazy thing is that he's 6'3", 215. So, I mean, he's basically just his own version of you got mossed. If you throw it up to him without the concentration drops, he catches so many of them. I mean, aside from watching tape, I always still like to watch a highlight reel just to see him sort of thing. And like 10 catches in a row were just go routes while the quarterback was sticky on him, but he still came down with it. It was one of the most impressive things. So it's almost like you can just keep doing it. I do believe that his athletic ability will keep him in this draft, but I do think that he could lose a little bit of value and stay in that day 3 and work around that 5th round draft pick and stay there. I would like to see what he's going to run. If he runs a 4.40, then I think it might actually raise his stock. And if he runs a 4.5, then it's going to lower. He tore his ACL in 2022. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct, which is another red flag that I have is that ACL concern and whether he's fully medically ready to go.
Right, which I can't stand it, which is so unfortunate because in 2021, he played a full season, had 750, and then he played the season after when he tore his ACL. He only had 9 games at 740. So he was about to break that by a large margin, and he didn't have that opportunity. So what he was before, if he shows that on tape by the end of the year and then tests, then I'll put him in that early day 3. But I'm gonna keep it at mid to late as of now.
Okay, so I have 2 comments to add. So for the listeners that don't know, a Feldman freak, it's a list. So it's Bruce Feldman. He creates a list from talking with coaches and trainers in college about players that have an exceptional physical gift. It could be you can squat a lot of weight, bench press a lot of weight. You can dunk a basketball on a 12-foot rim. Whatever the freakish athletic thing that a person does is what puts you on the list. And DeCorian Clark is on that list.
Yeah,
and that list is only about 60 to 70 people long. So that's what a Feldman freak is for those listening. And then I have a question. So I'm listening to you guys, and the scouting reports were similar, but some of the things that you were saying about DeCorian Clark is what everybody was saying about Keon Coleman after he was drafted. And Alec Pierce went in round 3 to the Colts, if memory serves me correctly. So if we have an Alec Pierce comp, and then I hear things that remind me of Keon Coleman, I don't see Keon Coleman and Alec Pierce as the same player. Right, their game is drastically different, right? Pierce is more of a downfield guy. At least that's what he is in my head. So does the athletic profile, do you think, like, is he athletic like Keon Coleman or is he athletic like Alec Pierce?
I think he's athletic like Keon Coleman personally, especially because also when they were using him in 2021 and 2022, they were using a lot of them in also intermediate. I know Alec Pierce still does intermediate, but he's a lot on this side. But DeCorian definitely got intermediate throws, kind of still how Keon did at Florida State and Michigan State. So I see him more like Keon, but I don't think that I don't think that he attacks the ball like Keon does. I think he waits for it to come to him and then win that contested catch, while Keon is more of a direct, like, I'm going to take that ball from you, and then I'm going to, take you down and go for it sort of thing. And I believe that Keon's yards after reception is way better than DeCorian Clark's. I think DeCorian Clark gets tackled pretty easily, and then Keon Coleman, once he catches that ball, he can get past and then take some hits and stay off the ground.
Yep, and that's exactly it. The Alec Pierce comparison is basically just like you had mentioned. Keon's going to attack the ball. He's going to go up and get that ball, Whereas Alec Pierce is going to let that ball come down to him, but he has the body frame to go get it. So same thing for DeCorian Clark. He has the frame to go get it, 6'3", 215. But I just would love to see him being more aggressive with it. Partially stemming concern for medical. Maybe he's gun shy. I don't know. That could be a scenario. Maybe he just thinks since I'm automatically 6'3", 215, that it'll automatically come to me. I would love to see him be more aggressive. But
Agreed.
I also see that Keon Coleman comp as well in that same mold of receiver.
Awesome. Okay. I think we have 2 more to go or 3 more to go.
I think we got 4 more to go.
4 more.
We've got
okay.
4 more.
So there's a couple guys that I don't have on the screen capture. It's being shared.
Yeah. If it's okay, I believe Kobe Hudson is next, and I'll start. Bill, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Dive on in.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about Kobe Hudson from UCF because I'm looking at Kobe Hudson. And I fell in love with Javon Baker last year. Now I'm like, UCF's going to do it to me again, aren't they? Sort of thing. Kobe Hudson, UCF. He's going to run probably a similar 4.5 40, 6'1", 200 pounds. In high school, he was a dual threat quarterback, which is pretty awesome. So that's in his tank sort of thing. He's an outside X, but can also work in the slot. He's kind of an all-around guy. He's tough and he's strong, which I do love about that. He's right now for this year, he has 1 drop and he is 3.14 yards per route return, yards per route run, which is absolutely nuts. So he's got the hands. He does it all right now on his wide receiver depth. He's got 202 deep yards, 129 slot yards. So, pretty even. He's 4 for 7 on the short, 15 for 21 and 3 touchdowns on the intermediate, and then 5 for 13 on 20 plus. The middle of the field's his bread and butter for those long shots, but he's still efficient. And so he can do it all in that aspect. I am a big fan of how he operates. In my personal opinion, he kind of works, which I feel like it's a lost art, which I believe that when you were talking about Luther Burden today, but that that powerful Z, like that strong Z that is quick, that it doesn't really exist that much in the NFL anymore. And I know that which I'll give you credit for, I believe it was you or whoever, Clint, that you were talking to with Percy Harvin.
Yes.
Percy Harvin was amazing and so much fun to watch. And there aren't a lot of people like Percy Harvin out there. But I do think that the closest person that I have that same enjoyment is Terry McLaurin. And I see Terry McLaurin with Kobe Hudson, and I think he's a lot of fun in that respect. And I wish that more receivers were like that in it. And I do think that tide is turning in the NFL, where we're going to get back to some of that. But that's who I see with Kobe Hudson.
Yep, absolutely. So yes, to answer your question, Luther Burden, we're going to get to him in a later episode, but that is my comp for Luther Burden is Percy Harvin, that powerful X receiver that's quick, that's fast, that's speedy, that just takes off. But I'm with you in Kobe Hudson. He reminded me a lot of Javon Baker because I saw a lot of the same things from Baker. He's had some really great performances. The Boise State game, 5 catches, 134 yards. Villanova had 6 catches, 147 yards. So you can see him as a down the field threat, but he also just does a lot of little nuanced things in route running that don't pop up on a scouting report or a depth chart or on a box score, that it's just chef's kiss. And
Yep.
I love it. I love it that he also has the ability. He doesn't matter whether he's on the outside, the inside, the slot, does not matter. He will go over the middle. If that route is going to go over the middle, guess what? He's going to run it. He is that type of guy. My biggest knock on him is I would love to see him get better with his play strength. And what I mean by against press coverage is the big concern for me. When he's pressed, he struggles to get off of that press quickly. Not to a point where it affects the route, but you see it. It's a little nuanced thing. And whether that's being a little bit shiftier at the line, whether that's getting through a swim move and getting around quickly, I'd love to see him be able to get around that press coverage. My comp for him It's a little bit different. It's a little bit out there, but stick with me. It's Kendrick Bourne from the New England Patriots. A lot of the same things, a very nuanced route runner. He's got speed. He's got that burst. He is a receiver that it does not matter where you put him. He's going to go over the middle. He's going to go deep. He's going to go in the corner routes. He is going to find spots in zone coverage. He is going to be on someone's team. I've got a day 3 guy for Kobe, but he's going to end up on someone's team. He's going to go through the Puka effect. It's a day 3 guy, ends up on the starting opening day roster, finds all these spots in zone coverage, blows up for 10 catches for 130 yards in his first game, and then we're all sitting around like, why didn't we take him in round 1?
My fantasy team is going to bank on that advice right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
No, I very much agree. And you know what's crazy is Javon Baker's knock for me last year was his releases at the line of scrimmage on press coverage. That's what he wasn't good at either. So I don't know what UCF is doing there. But or if they're just playing back on him all the time sort of thing. But that was Javon Baker's too.
Right. Let me ask you this about Kobe. The transfer from Auburn to UCF. Is that a flag for you?
It is not.
Okay.
I think Auburn. I'm biased because I live in Arkansas, so I don't like the Tigers at all. So so no, it's not a red flag for me for that reason. But I do think that Auburn is kind of a roller coaster right now, figuring themselves out. So UCF probably would be a better role in receiver development. So I do think it was a smart move. What do you think?
It's something that I would want to question him during the interviews because he was leading the team in receptions when he was at Auburn before he transferred.
Right.
So what made you want to leave when you're excelling? You're clearly excelling on the field. You're leading your team in receptions, but then you transfer not necessarily to a larger school, but a kind of step down in competition. I mean, Auburn in the SEC, UCF. It's not a red flag for me. I call it a yellow flag. It's something that I put a push pin in his folder, and when I get him in the interview room, I'm going to ask him, hey, what happened here? Depending on how he answers, that could affect his draft stock. But it's something that if I'm an NFL GM, I have to have it in the back of my mind. I can't in good conscience turn a draft card in for him if I don't know the true answer.
That's fair. I like that. All right. Bill, do you want to start off with Pat Bryant?
I do. So Pat Bryant, the wide receiver out of Illinois, 6'3", 200 pounds. This guy is a physical route runner, strong catch radius. He has what I like to call the Roomba vacuum body with his catch radius. The pass is near him. He is sucking it up. Does not matter. My biggest knocks with him, his release package. Watch the game. Watch the last game against Oregon. Watch the last game for Illinois at Oregon on the brain. Sorry. Watch him release off the line. It's mechanical, but it's the same package, same release, same get off every single time. He also doesn't necessarily have the explosiveness off the ball in that press scenario. Part of that release could be just him in his own head mechanically. Okay, I got to get ready. Ball snapped. I got to go.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not fluid with the release. But I'm gonna make another spicy take. I'm probably gonna end up on like freezing cold takes or something for all these bad takes.
Everybody is, right?
Right. I think pound for pound, Pat Bryant is the best vertical receiver in this entire class.
Interesting. Okay,
if you have every wide receiver in terms of their vertical route running, their go routes, their deeps, their deep corner posts, I think he is the best deep vertical route runner because he's at 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got a long stride. He builds up that speed, and he is gone. And you see it.
I am not going to say that – I'm not going to disagree with you because I need to make sure I am correct before I disagree with you. But that is a spicy take.
Yes. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. I had it loaded up in the chamber ready to go, and I knew it was going to draw some people in. But, yeah, it is a spicy take for sure.
He's great. He is great. That's why I'm unwilling to disagree with you. Is I think that there's a case to be made, but yes, that's a very spicy take.
Yes. He reminds me a lot of Cortland Sutton from the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
He is a big body guy who can get down the field, build up that speed. He is a big body guy. But by that same token, his overall route tree, it's not really that developed. It's mostly curls and posts and the hitches. But when he runs those deep routes, that deep post, that deep slant over the middle, the go ball, you see that speed and you're like, why are we not? He's the type of player that if you have him on your team, you just call 4 verticals and watch him go.
Yeah. That inside post this year, he's 5 for 6 for 2 touchdowns and a perfect passer rating for the quarterback on that inside post middle field, 20+. Yep. Beautiful. I agree. I mean, he had a great Nebraska game, putting up 574 and 2 touchdowns. That was fun. That was a lot of fun to watch. CMU, he had a great game. My comp is because Cortland Sutton's probably a better comp, to be honest with you. But I'll unfortunately have to tell a story why I think my comp is my comp. But I pretty much agree with you. I mean, the physical route runner, big catch rate. He's a great blocker, which is incredible too. So that's going to help his stock for run blocking and even screen blocking. He's great. Before I say my comp, is there any concern for you in his statistics when he does go up against top 25?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a flag for me. It is flag that he shies away from that large competition. Like if I look and you go 104 yards on 4 catches versus Purdue, but then the week before 3 catches, 39 yards against Penn State.
It seems like top 25 is 3 for 35, right?
Yes. I think tomorrow's game versus Oregon and the corners they have at Oregon is going to be his biggest test this season. And if he comes out looking like the star he is,
I'll forget all that.
Didn't Illinois just play Michigan, or was Will Johnson hurt when they played Michigan?
They did play Michigan. He only went 4 for 32 in that game. I believe Will Johnson was in for the line that you were
describing before. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, my comp for him is what I was hoping Gabriel Davis would come out from UCF, because I love Gabe Davis. He was great. We got him in a steal. He was incredible. Great blocker, super physical. What got in Gabe's way was drops, of course, which then lost his opportunities to become a star receiver. If he had, and he caught with his hand, Gabe caught with his hands. Pat does not, which is good. Like claps, not like catching it, but claps the ball. Yeah. So Pat Bryant does not do that, which is good. But Pat Bryant is exactly what Gabe Davis could be and ascend into a wide receiver 2 role, given that opportunity, because that's pretty much exactly what he does.
Exactly. So how would you compare Pat Bryant to, was it Isaiah Johnson, the Illinois receiver that came out last year? He's on the Lions now. Or at least he was with the Lions in camp. And he was at the Senior Bowl last year.
I got to remember him.
Yeah,
he was like a 4th. I think he went in round 4.
I vaguely remember, which that shows some context about Isaiah Johnson, is that I vaguely remember his tape, whereas Pat Bryant stands out to me pretty well.
Right.
And that's fair, because last year was a loaded class, right? Yeah. Isaiah Johnson last year was probably like the 20th receiver off the board. Right, because it would have been like round 4, and I think 18 went in the first 3 rounds. Right. So,
but that's a good.
Okay, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you guys
I got to do my research on Isaiah Johnson.
Yeah, Jim's out here with stumpers today. He's stumping us.
Yeah, that was 1. We got 1.
Yeah, we got. Everybody gets 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So are we done? Are we done with Pat Bryant?
We are done with Pat Bryant.
before we close out. Okay. So first of all, we have a lot of people watching and listening. For the last 75 minutes, there's been almost 60 of you here. So thank you very much. Please like, follow, subscribe. The NFL Draft Fanatic channel on YouTube has draft content every day. So please follow on YouTube. And please also follow on Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. No I in Fanatic on Twitter. And now for the big finish. Who gets to introduce Isaiah Bond?
Do we have 2 left?
I was saying, we have 2 left.
That's right.
We have one that's my ACC sleeper.
Is that Jerron Bradley?
It is. It is Jerron Bradley. So
that means I get to talk about
Yes,
I get to lead Isaiah Bond.
I forgot we had one more.
You teased the close. So, Jerron Bradley, Boston College wide receiver. And a lot of you are probably thinking, Bill, why are you watching Boston College offensive football in 2024? I'm a sick guy. I watched the tape. But Jerron Bradley, 6'5", 222, big body guy, plays with a smooth balance, fearless in traffic, great hand-eye coordination. He is the type of guy that is going to high point the ball, a very strong possession receiver, can get out from that press coverage very quickly. We've talked a lot about different receivers not being able to beat the release. Jerron Bradley can do that. He not only is tall, but he has the frame. A lot of guys you see, they're just tall, lanky, giraffe-like wide receivers. Bradley fills out that frame, 6'5", 222. He also is a legitimate vertical threat, does a nice job, locates, tracks deep passes, and goes up against the ball. The big concern, obviously, is he doesn't have that twitch, that quick speed to get off the line very easily. He also doesn't have that long speed. But the big thing that really hurts me the most about Bradley is he's a chest catcher. He does not use his hands and his length, because if he used that 6'5" length, he would just as easily be able to snatch balls out of the air with ease. We're talking about a guy very, very good so far this season. 6 catches, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Right now, currently against Louisville, as we sit here live, live and breathe, I do believe he's got already, let me see. So, yeah, we'll pull up the stats. But right now, you can see him when you watch Boston College's offense. You see this big body guy. It's tough to find a comp for him because it's hard to find a guy that can go and get those contested catches that also has a little bit of burst and twitch, but not so much. I comped him to Laquan Treadwell from the Minnesota Vikings. Same concept here. It's a guy, bigger body. He can make those contested catch plays if he learns how to use his hands. I am a little higher on him than most. I am. I'll admit it. I have a day 2 grade on Jerron Bradley. There are a lot of people who think he's an undrafted guy, a day 3 guy. I see him for his development and his frame. You can't teach size. I can't teach 6'5", 222. I can't. Mm-hmm. I can teach you how to catch with your hands. I can teach you how to beat press coverage on the line. But, Randall, I'll turn it over to you. How do you feel about Jerron Bradley?
I do believe Jerron Bradley will be drafted. I don't have a day 2 on him. But I do understand why you would have a day 2 on him. We're talking late day 2. It does. I mean, when I put on when I was doing my scouting for Jerron Bradley, in the back of my head, which I know they are completely different receivers and stuff like that, I was going back to Johnny Wilson last year. But he's 6'7", but he's 6'5", 222. And it was perfectly said when you were talking about tall receivers just being kind of clunky and not being able to do it. Johnny Wilson basically got through the draft process because of his size, and his size only, be like, we can fix him. Jerron Bradley, there's much less of that, to where I think your confidence in his mentals and his actual ability is much more comforting in that manner to be able to jump up into that late day 2 or early day 3. So I do like him in that respect. Probably my favorite thing is he's kind of like Michael Pittman, where he'll catch the ball. If there is 4 dudes that are ready to get hit for targeting, he'll still come down with that because it doesn't matter. he'll take that hit and he'll hold on to that ball. His middle of the field, I believe he's perfect this year in the middle of the field. I think he's caught every single target he's gotten in the middle of the field, so that's incredible. His 2023 spray chart is actually much more comforting than his 2024. He looks more in 2023. He looks more like a day 2 than 2024, but it's hard with Boston College offense, as you've talked about. So right now I have him as a mid-day 3, like an early round 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're correct by draft.
Yeah, he's one of those combine guys. You get him in the workout room, you get him in the weight room, you get him in those measurements, that vertical. Some team somewhere is going to say 6'5", 222 with a catch radius like this. I'll overlook every other red flag you got. Bring him on.
And to build on something else that you said, and like I like looking at, like, let's say macro draft trends. That's like one of my passions as I do this. So if you think to the year that JSN and Jordan Addison came out, and there was a complaint that year of there's not a lot of big wide receivers. Like Buffalo had to get like Justin Shorter in like round 5, and like he did nothing, right? But there weren't a lot of big receivers. So to your point, teams want that prototypical X. There was a reason that teams were trading up for Xavier Legette and Keon Coleman in the draft last year. They want the X, and there was not a high supply. They existed, not a high supply. So when you see a receiver, when you see a receiver like Jerron Bradley, and you see you have prototypical size, to both of your point, you're going to get drafted. The question is how high.
Yep.
Right? Because NFL teams they at least want it in camp. And then you have to fight to be that, 4th or 5th wide receiver that's going to play special teams and work your way, into a role within the offense type thing.
Yep.
So
exactly. Okay.
I can't comp him because Treadwell was good, but he is difficult.
He's very difficult to comp, and Treadwell is about as close as I've gotten so far. That comp will probably change 3 or 4 more times as we move through the season, but Treadwell is about as close as I can get. But
for sure,
Randall, with Bradley, it is now time for the main event. Ding, ding, ding. I will let you introduce Isaiah Bond.
All right, Isaiah Bond. Quicker than Isaiah Reed. Isaiah Bond, 5'11", 180. He has a good chance between Reed, Bond, and probably Damani Jackson, where those 3 people who will run the fastest at the combine. I expect at least a 4.28. He obviously was at Alabama. Everybody remembers that Milrow catch at the 4th down right in the corner end zone. And, once the main man got out, he transferred over to Texas, was a 4-star recruit, track star. He ran in high school at 10.5 100 meter, which is super impressive. Played wide receiver in high school. He's got track speed, obviously yak threat all day. His hands are super soft. His easily, by far, other than him being already NFL ready, is his route running. His route running is super fun to watch. It's wild. It's NFL ready. His releases are really good. And then basically every time I watch him, if I was a cornerback, I would think he's running a go route every single time. He stays straight up. He does not slow down at his hitch. He's always straight up. And then when he stops on that dime, it's just impressive. He's quick. He knows how to move his body. Again, that route running, when he's running in that first 10 yards, it's full speed, straight up. So then, if you're not bending down, once that cornerback sees you bend down a little bit, that means your hitch is coming in, and he rarely does that. So as a cornerback, I'd be thinking it's a go route every time, but most of the time it's not. In wide receiver depth, it's everywhere. 10 for 13 on 1 touchdown in short, 5 for 8 for 1 in intermediate. He's 1 for 5, only in the middle of the field. So those long balls, obviously, is probably what he can work on. But I am curious. I don't think that he is being utilized as a deep threat in 2024 as much as he should be. He was used as a deep threat a lot at Alabama. And I don't know if it's the mix-up with Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning and not getting on the same page as flip-flopping quarterbacks, but he's not being utilized in the deep threat as much as he should because he has that at clear as day, and they're just not targeting him enough. I'll have you chime in, Bill, and then we can kind of go back on some of his game qualities and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I am in 100% agreement with you. He is a legit burner in every sense of the word. I mean, he's got speed for days, track speed. He is a dangerous yak threat. He's the type of guy that if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm lining him up in the slot. I'm putting him on jet sweeps. I am running him out of the backfield. I am putting him everywhere that I can. He is the type of guy you give him a ball in space and just let him work.
Mm-hmm.
My big concerns, obviously, we've talked about it, 5'11", 180 pounds. It's light.
Yeah.
That alone, that type of size, gives me pause if I can have him succeed on the outside full-time at the next level. So that kind of dampers things a little bit. The other big knock on him that I have is when he's running those routes that are over the middle. You see him, any sort of contact knocks him off that route. And it's partially either because of a concentration issue. It's partially because he's 5'11", 180 pounds. Haven't quite dug that far into the tape to see, but when you see those deep posts and those deep over the middle crossers, you see them kind of flatten out because of the safety bumping him off of that coverage, bumping him off of that route.
Do you see that with the evolution of the NFL wide receiver? Do you think NFL GMs have a concern with his frame, or are they just going right past it?
It's going to depend on the offensive coordinator that I have. If I've got a creative offensive coordinator, if I've got a Sean McVay, a Kyle Shanahan, an Andy Reid type of guy that can draw up plays for him, jet sweeps, short screens, things like that, I will have no problem. But if I have a Ken Dorsey, for example,
Browns fan.
Yeah. Browns fan, yeah.
Cleveland?
Yeah, he's not long for Cleveland, but that's a whole nother podcast. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast episode. But if I have a guy like that who kind of struggles to use his talent in space, I'm going to have a concern on whether I can fully maximize Isaiah Bond or not. The other concern that I have, at 5'11", 180, you're going to be more prone to injury. He's stayed healthy relatively throughout his career, so it hasn't been a concern yet, but it is sticking in the back of your mind at 5'11", 180.
Yeah.
Let me pose this question to you from a GM perspective. We've talked about it earlier. We see some guys that are going to run quicker, the 4.3s, 4.35s. If Isaiah Bond runs a 4.4, does that flag for you?
Yes, but kind of like I guess it would be a yellow, and then it would have to see, because that would be a little concerning, especially with the production in 2024 so far, how he blew up in the first two games and then kind of hadn't fall up, but Texas has been weird. The 4.4, if it would hold true, if you can go back, let's say he runs a 4.4 and then you go back and find it on tape where some of that does apply, that's where my concern would be. And then that would turn from a yellow to a red. But I guess it would just be a cause for concern to see if there is an underlining problem. And if you can get it out, then there's no flag, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The same way for me. A 4.4 is not a be-all, end-all. He's off my board, tank his stock, sell everything you have. But it's a concern. If I see a guy whose game is predicated on speed and is predicated on using that quick speed, and then he shows up at the combine and runs a 4.4, I'm now going to look back at the tape and revisit everything I have in terms of that. And now I'm doubting myself in terms of that speed.
No, I agree.
The other question I'll pose, obviously transferring from Alabama to Texas. Is that a flag for you?
It is not. Just because it was because of Nick Saban when it came down to it. I think they thought Alabama was going to implode after Saban left. So I think that gets an immediate free pass when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And he chose Texas. So Texas schedule isn't isn't easy. So I don't believe that's a flag. What about you?
It's not a flag for me. I think if anything, I would have encouraged him to transfer from Alabama to Texas because I think
and it does make a little bit of sense if you think of the 2 Texas receivers that just left.
Right.
Because that was A.D. Mitchell and Worthy that were there last year, right?
Yep.
Right.
And those guys could flat out run.
Mm-hmm.
So if he knew that he had similar traits, the question that I would have is who had more production in that offense, Worthy and Mitchell or Bond?
Exactly.
Because if you know what A.D. Mitchell is and you know what Xavier Worthy are in the NFL right now, and you see what they did in college, and Bond can't do – if Bond doesn't have the production in the same offense, even though he has elite traits, what does that tell us?
As of today, I'm going to take the elite traits in that argument based on, again, the flip-flop of Ewers and Manning. I think that does put a wrinkle in it, and the timing, everything about that wide receiver quarterback connection. And then, even switching them out, they switched out Manning and put Quinn Ewers back in last game, whatever game that was. So I think it's rough for Bond in that respect, and I'm going to take the traits personally.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And you watch the offensive tape for Texas last year with Mitchell, Worthy, and Ewers, and even this year. There's timing issues. And I'm not sure if it's just Ewers not trusting the routes or if it's Ewers not trusting his arm. I'm lower on Quinn Ewers. I've said that since the beginning, and people have flamed me for it. But I am lower. He's not even in my top 10 quarterbacks on my draft board right now. That's how far down the list he is for me.
I had a user of the simulator say that something in your simulator's like not working right because Ewers went in round 4. And I said, no, I think that's working as designed.
That is 100% check the box.
Told me Ewers went in round 4 that my simulator wasn't working.
Yeah.
Ewers is a round 4 guy because of a lot of issues that it's its own podcast. But I'm gonna throw this here. I'm gonna throw my comp out for Isaiah Bond. Jordan Addison.
I like Jordan
Vikings
Addison.
wide receiver.
We
had the same questions. 5'11", 173. Same questions about that frame, but he had that speed and space, and he ended up in Minnesota with a guy like Kevin O'Connell and Keenan McCardell as his wide receivers coach, and we all saw what Keenan could do in the pros. That's what I'd want to see from Isaiah Bond. Is I want him to end up in an offense that can scheme for him and scheme through him.
And that's a good point because I think you mentioned something about using Bond as a wide receiver too, didn't you? Or was that a different player and I'm grouping that together? Because Addison is a perfect wide receiver too to Jefferson.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
He doesn't
have to be the guy.
Right.
Yes.
He has to fill a role within the offense. And that's how I see Bond.
That's exactly how I see him too. He's not the guy, but he's a guy to supplement the guy.
So where are you taking him in the draft? Where would you be happy that the Browns took him?
Second round.
Fair.
I don't see him as a top 32 guy. I will say this, and this hurts me to say this for a Cleveland Browns fan perspective. I think his perfect spot, Cincinnati.
After T. Higgins is gone, or as a wide receiver 3?
Both.
Both?
If T. Higgins leaves, he slides right in, and now Jamar Chase handles those double coverages, and now you've got Isaiah Bond running all over the field. Higgins stays, now you have Isaiah Bond as your slot guy, and that is an immediate upgrade on that offense.
Yeah.
And you have a head coach that knows how to scheme, right? So Zach Taylor can be creative offensively. That's the right use, right? Because when you were saying, like, you don't want him with Ken Dorsey, I was trying to say, well, he's probably not going to the Chargers then.
No,
right?
he would.
Greg Roman wouldn't know how to use a wide receiver if Jerry
Greg
Rice
Roman
showed
would
up
probably
at the
line him up in the backfield and give him halfback dives all game, and we'd all be looking at him like he's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to do too much Greg Roman slander, but
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
Hey, so guys, we just got through, I believe, 16 players in 95 minutes. I thought that went well.
We love it.
Love it. Good times.
So we're planning to do this same bat time, same bat channel next Friday, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We'll be here.
Yep. So we're going to have
good players
eight
next
more
week,
wide receivers, 8 more corners. The list will be published on Twitter. I think Randall and Bill already know what the list is, but the rest of you will just have to wait until that Twitter post happens.
Exactly. Got to save all the secrets. Can't give them all away in the first episode.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So please like, follow, subscribe. Find Spark Scouting on Twitter. Find Randall Slifer on Twitter. Find NFL Draft Fanatic on Twitter. You will see a lot of the dialogue that leads up into, when Randall and Bill were researching and I could see the different feedback going on in my feed. I was like, yeah, so this is guys just having fun talking about what we do. So,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I absolutely loved the dialogue. I love being able to take part in it. Love the fact that we have a lot of people watching. So thank you very much. So thank you, everybody. Have a great Friday night.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your football weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.